Hi, my name's Kathleen Hicks, and in this video essay, I will be discussing Karl Marx's commodity fetishism in relation to chairs that are presented in interior design showrooms. More specifically though, in this video essay, I will be exploring what is fetishism and what does Karl Marx mean by this. Secondly, in this video essay, I will be examining how an object can become a commodity by being presented in an interior showroom. Lastly, I will be discussing the ideologies of chairs and showrooms. Marx uses the term fetish not in an erotic manner. He draws upon the colonial origin of the word fetish, which was used to describe religious objects that possessed magical powers. He uses this notion to bring an understanding of commodities. He writes, "A commodity appears at first sight as a trivial thing, but its analysis brings out that it is a very strange thing, abounding in metaphysical subtleties and theological necessities." In Marx, Volume 1, Part 1, Commodities and Money, Section 4, under the chapter Fetishism of Commodities and the Secret Thereof, he writes, "Man by his industry changes the forms of materials furnished by nature in a way to make them useful. The form of wood is changed into a table, and that table continues to be that common everyday thing, wood, but it steps forth as a commodity and it is changed into something else. Not only stands with its feet on the ground, but in relation stands on its head, and it evolves out of its brain and into table turning." This brings forth the term commodity fetishism. In relation to the term commodity, the commodity remains useful if it is tied to a use-value system. A contemporary example of this is when a chair designer takes a piece of metal and fabric and it turns it into a chair through human labor. It has a clear use value and it is a product of human labor, and it is still tied to its material characteristics. However, when the chair is placed in an interior showroom, the chair becomes a commodity and it becomes a metaphysical object that has come into its own existence. The relationship between the designer and the chair is removed when consumers and their money is involved, such as an interior design client, and this creates an exchange system between showroom manager. Due to our capitalist society, when showroom managers bring through clients to view new chairs, the clients see the chairs as having their own value, rather seeing the real human labor that went to make the chairs. The reason why the clients do not have this knowledge is that in capitalism, labor is done privately. The chair was made in a studio or factory and does not have any value until it is brought into the showroom. In today's capitalist society, we relate to products through the exchange of money, forgetting the human labor that goes into it, and those apparent movements in the relative values of those products. As consumers, we approach the chair, as seen on the PowerPoint presentation, as an act of exchange in mind that has been established between products and money and becomes the mask that covers up the human labor that created those chairs, which then causes money to be treated like a god that possesses mystical powers. Through this process, social relationships form through the production of objects, then alienation begins as the object becomes a commodity, which then the object becomes independent from the control of the chair designer, and their conscious action. The value arises because of human labor. Consumers in the capitalist system are led to believe that they are not in control of the market forces that independently exist. Commodity fetishism masks the social reality of the production of commodities and makes it impossible to unveil the truth of the appearance of the objects and identity of the real conditions and the social relations the commodity emerges from. For an example of this is Italian artist and designer Martino Gamper, who explores the notion of commodity fetishism through his exhibition 100 Chairs. In this exhibition, Gamper makes one chair every day for 100 days. The chairs in the exhibition speak beyond the fetishization of the designer chair and is introduced into a narrative of the chair itself. The chair becomes the fetish for the designer. The chair is the closest furniture piece that represents the human body and which the designer can manipulate and create their own meaning towards the object. The chair represents the negative mold of ourselves, giving us comfort and support for everyday mundane tasks such as reading and eating. However, commodity fetishism brings to light the act of ideology in these commodities and how they depict how society acts without realizing them. Commodity fetishism critiques the social relations of production through the market of commodities, through the exchange of commodities from the producer to the buyer. A disconnection begins which creates an illusion that the commodities emerge by itself and it's created its own value. For instance, a chair appears to a consumer as a sublime and divine, but it is just a process of real-life struggle. When a designer, such as Martino Gamper, designs a new chair and it is placed in a showroom, we view the chair as this divine object that will create a new identity and a new status for the consumer. But this isn't the case. It is a symbol for the artist's struggle, labor, and time. Marxist ideology demonstrates the use of false appearance, the showroom and the chair. When we enter the showroom, there are two ideologies. One is the chair and the other one is the showroom itself. Firstly, the chair's ideology presents itself as an elite designer chair that will enhance your lounge room decor, and at the same time the chair will transform the mind of the buyer, which is you, and trigger the possibilities which the chair can provide, such as status and new identity that will help you reach a new level of higher self. This reality and appearance changes when the consumer, you, takes the chair out of the showroom and places it in their own lounge room. The functionality of the chair comes from the physical appearance of the design and the way it is presented in the showroom. Once that is removed, it becomes an unusable commodity, and the perception and reality is lost that once appeared in the showroom, because we remove the ideology of the chair that the consumer didn't know that they were under. This is the false reality of the chair that imposes on the buyer in the showroom. Lastly, the showroom presents itself as a false reality of many possibilities of elitism and becomes a fantasy performance for the consumer to purchase the chair. Herman Miller and Knoll define furniture showrooms as a highly controlled and controllable context in which companies and designers familiarize architects, designers, and consumers with new ideas about living with modern furniture and architecture. This invites the consumer to embrace consumerism through a modern idiom. These showrooms demonstrate a unique interior performance for the consumers at the hands and at the same time reconciles the relationship between consumer and mass consumed goods, which this hypes the chair further and presents it further from the truth, and it is taken over by desire. To explain this further, when witnessing the chair in the showroom, we're attracted by its desire that the showroom has heightened. In Zizek's Kinder Eggs, Coke and Consumerism, it discusses the impact of desire in consumerism as the showroom heightens our desire to purchase the latest chair. We start desiring desire itself through the process. Thus, the chair in the showroom is well styled, appears attractive to the buyer, but when we remove it from the showroom and style, it is presented in a style it was presented in, it loses its attractiveness and desire, and in the end becoming just an average chair. In conclusion, Marx uses the term fetish not in an erotic manner upon the colonial origin of the word fetish, used to describe religious objects that possess magical powers. He uses this notion to bring an understanding of commodities, this bringing forth the term commodity fetishism. A contemporary example of this is when a chair designer takes a piece of metal and fabric and turns it into a chair through human labor. However, when the chair is placed in an interior showroom, it becomes a commodity and a mystical object that has come into its own existence. In today's capitalist society, We relate to the products through the exchange of money, forgetting the human labor and other relative values that go into the progress of making the chair. Again, this was explored by Martino Gamper's exploration of the notion of commodity fetishism through his exhibition 100 Chairs in 100 Days. However, commodity fetishism brings to light the active ideology in these commodities and how they depict how society acts without realizing it. Marx's ideology also demonstrates the use of false appearance. The chair's ideology presents itself as an elite designer chair that will enhance your lounge room decor as well as other lifestyle benefits, and the showroom itself. Therefore, commodity fetishism makes us aware of the mystification of commodities. We as consumers don't realize how those commodities make us act. Thank you.